just to be sure. Perfect little clap. Hi, welcome back to Jem Does Stuff, the name of the channel, and it's definitely been the name of the channel ever, always, and the channel's never been named anything else. Today's video I've got for you is some tips and tricks for going to Pride and maybe even the Folsom Street Fair for neurodivergent people. So, come and join me. Well, it's Pride season, and this past weekend I went to Sacramento Pride for the first time in 2 years. It's the first time they've had it since the Panorama. I had an absolute blast, saw lots of friends, lots of fun performances, but I also ended up super overwhelmed and a little bit tired afterwards. Just some personal things that I've taken away from my experiences going to festivals like Folsom Street Fair and Pride. Here are some tips I recommend to you, the internet. Tip number 1 is I highly recommend planning your trip in advance. See what events are going on, figure out what booths there are, figure out if there's going to be any sort of accommodations, like disability accommodation areas and things like that. All of these things are going to be super important, and you're super going to want to know them when you can show up at the festival. And also just kind of getting a general vibe for what you might be getting into, especially if it's your first time going to a festival like this. I'd highly recommend looking up what the rules are and what the code of conduct is, because every Pride is different, baby. Every Pride is different, as you'll see in whatever video I do next after this, when I go to SF Pride and compare the two. The second tip, bouncing off of that, second tip, number 2, keep it brief, honestly. Set aside your own amount of time, but out of my personal experience, I would recommend choosing one specific day that you want to go, because usually most prides are 2 days, like a 2-day event, and I would recommend personally for me, and or anyone else out there who gets overwhelmed by this type of stuff, choosing one day, going one day, because they're practically the same day. Usually there's just one of them comes with a parade, all right? So it's nothing special. I actually went both days, and one of those days was 105 degrees, so I was suffering a little bit, but c'est la vie. C'est la vie. I went both days primarily because I had friends who were performing the first day, and then I wanted to see the parade the next day and catch up with friends the next day as well. But let me tell you, that Sunday, no. Oh my God, I was basically dead. I was kind of just a skeleton, just sitting in a chair in the shade, unmoving and only observing whatever the hell was happening around me. Not participating, only observing. Highly, highly recommend choosing just one day or very specific events and amounts of time that you're gonna spend there. Because doing it for even more than I think 5 hours, it's rough. Just use that as a transition noise. Sounds like a fucking broken door. Tip 3, number 3, tres. I'm learning Spanish slowly. Tip number 3, I highly recommend, if you have any sort of prescription to help with your brain do good, I would highly recommend taking it. Hell, I'd highly recommend putting it in your fucking water bottle, baby. That shit, you're gonna want that. I know for me, for Folsom Street Fair, I have a personal prescription of Adderall, and it's only about 10 milligrams. It's only supposed to last about 4 hours, because I used to be on a higher dose, and then I stopped eating, which is a totally different story for a different day. But for the Folsom Street Fair and for this event too, for Sacramento Pride, I packed myself a small little thing of my Adderall pills in a child-proof container. And I usually carry that around when I go to events like this, just in case I get like hella overstimmed and whatever dosage I took earlier that day is no longer working. And I found that to be very, very, very effective. So far, there were a couple flaws when I tried it at the Folsom Street Fair. We can talk about that in a different video, baby. We'll talk about that later. So that's tip number 3. My phone is just not carrying this conversation as well as she should be. Disappointing. All right, tip number 4, drink water. Girlies. I know. Let me look directly in the camera. I know. It's hard. We don't like water. I do not know how many neurodivergent people I've met who are like, yes, water, delicious. Drink your fucking water. It's hot out there. It's summer. Keep a fan around. You're gonna drink your fucking water, bitch. Because if you are just not taking care of your physical form, it will only make you feel worse, especially when you start physically getting overwhelmed. Water is just something that can help cool you off as well as keep you calm. So that is my suggestion. 5th, but definitely not the least important, is trust in a buddy system. I highly recommend, as somebody who goes out by themselves and like does shit by themselves, I'd still highly recommend like getting a friend or a group of friends or whatever to go to the event, especially friends who are a little bit more understanding of your disability and are a little bit more aware of it, or even have the disability themselves. We support all friends groups here, just because that way you can actually create a better way to engage in your like fail-safe systems. I know that if I didn't end up meeting some wonderful people at the Folsom Street Fair, I'm not going to say I would have died, because that seems melodramatic, but I am going to say I probably would have had a worse time. Just having somebody there that you can be like, hey, I'm overstimmed, can we go somewhere else? Can you keep me company? Can you watch over me? Just like any sort of that stuff really helps and makes the experience all the more better. All the better. That's the list. That's everything I've written down. Well, join me next week when I compare and contrast Sacramento Pride to SF Pride, and which one I think is the more neurodivergent friendly. Bye!